how I've been using it. And so if you're not familiar, this is the Windows app in OneNote. I'm going to demo this because the math tools that I'm going to show off work best in the OneNote for Windows app, and I'll talk about some of the different versions here at the end. But just if you're not familiar, I always describe OneNote as a digital 3-ring binder and spiral notebook. So I can type right on the page here. I can highlight, I can bold this text, italicize it, change it, just like Microsoft Word, all that kind of stuff. Highlight it if I want to. I've also got a stylus here, so I can write right on the screen. If I go to the draw menu, I've got all these different colors that I can choose from. So I can use my stylus to write directly on the screen, just like that. Pretty easy. I've got an eraser too right at my disposal. So everything we used to be able to do, or we used to do day to day in our physical 3-ring binder and spiral notebook, we can now do in OneNote. We can add pages, we can add sections. You can look over here. This is the notebook that I'm in. It's actually a class notebook. So if you're not familiar with the class notebook structure, it's a great, amazing tool to use with your students, because I get a collaboration space where my students and I can all work together. I get a content library, which is kind of like my LMS or my bulletin board, if you will. And I can post all the different pages and resources here for students to view. And then I've got the individual student notebooks of all the folks in my class. So I can pop in and grade work, see how they're doing, analyze their notes, and really interact with them and give them real-time feedback whenever I want. So the ability to add sections and pages, super, super beneficial. And it's absolutely hands down changed the way I teach and work as a math teacher. I teach one math class in addition to being the director of ed tech. So it's certainly altered my world, but also helping my other teachers around campus. It's been essential. So a couple other things just with the general parts of OneNote, and I'll touch on the class notebook briefly. This class notebook add-in, once you build it with all the students in, I can now distribute pages, I can distribute sections, I can review student work and grade it in real time in a very organized fashion. And I can also manage the notebook as students coming in and out of my class, different permissions and so forth. Definitely recommend that you check those things out. But I don't spend any time anymore passing out or collecting papers in class. My students don't have to wait for weeks at a time for me to grade and then repass out those papers in class. As soon as I grade it in OneNote, because OneNote syncs automatically every 5, 10, 15 seconds, the students are going to see that feedback in real time. That's essential for any class, but especially in math. I can't tell you how many times over the years pre-OneNote I've seen students do 20 math problems incorrectly. They don't know they're doing it wrong. They haven't gotten the feedback. There's no way to check, but they've now created a really bad habit by doing the same problem 20 times over, or even 5 times over, right? And so now that I can give them that feedback, they can do a couple problems. I can give them some feedback. They can either be encouraged to continue if they got it right, or they can make adjustments and move forward. So anyway, definitely recommend all these class notebook options. They're absolutely fantastic. The other things I'll show off just in general with OneNote before we dive into the math specific stuff is I can use the shapes tool here. So I can insert a shape directly on the page. I have all these options, and I love that they've included 2-dimensional and even 3-dimensional graphs for the math classroom. Love that. Super helpful, especially at the high school level. We can also do ink to shape, which is fun. I don't know about you, but I'm not great at drawing circles. So if I'm in a geometry class and I'm drawing, especially with a stylus, that can be kind of frustrating. Although I do have a coworker here at school who can simultaneously draw 2 perfect circles, one on each hand. It's the most amazing thing. I don't know how he does it, but it's almost perfect every single time. I can't do that. But with OneNote, I can use ink to shape. And when I click on that button and then draw a circle on the screen, it's going to snap it into the shape that I'm drawing. So the closer I get to a circle, it's going to snap it in there. I can do a rectangle. I can do a diamond. And now these are just editable and adjustable, almost like I copy and pasted a picture, right? I can change them, move them around, move them on the screen over to the left-hand side. Super, super flexible. You've also got ink to text. If I want to take my text here, I don't know if it'll read it because that morning is kind of a little bit, you can tell, oh, there it is. It worked perfectly. Awesome. Love that. I wasn't sure on a Saturday morning if that was going to work, but so I can take my handwritten ink now and put it to text. Maybe it's a more professional look to your documents or the pages that you're sharing with your students. But a great space, and all these different markers. There's a bunch more that you can add: pens, pencils, highlighters, and really personalize how you use OneNote as a tool. All right, so let's dive into the math part of it. One of the first things and one of the most important things that we do as you move on in math is graphing functions, right? Especially as you get into algebra and algebra 2, pre-calc, and on up. We graph functions all the time. And if you're a math teacher, you've probably seen a graph like this where students plot points and then they do that and they go, okay, yep, that's my line. That's not really accurate, right? I mean, you get the idea. Maybe you plotted the points right. The line's kind of going in the right direction, but I mean, we want some precision here, right? We want students to be able to be confident and know what they're doing and really have an answer that looks smooth and clear, right? So one of the great new additions to the OneNote for Windows app is this ruler. This is unbelievable. I have no idea how Mike Wolfson and the OneNote team figured this out, but it's absolutely incredible. So I click on the ruler button here, and this ruler pops up. So I'm just going to use my fingers. I'm on a touchscreen device here. So I can turn this ruler all the way around. So I can slide it over here right on top of these 2 points. I'll try and get it as close as possible. Move it down a little bit. And so that snaps into place. And now check this out. I take my stylus and draw right across the ruler, and boom, there's my line. I have a perfectly straight line that connects those 2 points. So now this would work for anything, right? You could even do this if you were in graphic arts and drawing straight lines, geometry, other classes. If you were doing like a T-chart, you could use the ruler. But certainly in drawing graphs and straight lines in the mathematics classroom, amazing, amazing tool. I love the ruler, and I love the ink to shape as well for the geometry component anytime you're working with shapes. So super cool tool. Love that. Definitely recommend using that when you're using OneNote. So obviously, we all have different ways of managing our workflow in the classroom. And I think on some level, we all use worksheets, right? Whether it's problems or questions or diagrams we fill out, everybody uses worksheets on some level. One of the great things you can do with OneNote, I keep saying great things, one of the other, right, additional great things, there are so many, we can take any document and print it directly to OneNote. So I've got this PDF here. It's just a worksheet that I downloaded from the internet, just a very simple worksheet. This could be a Word document. This could be a PowerPoint, Excel, website, anything you can get a physical copy of printed to a printer, you can print to OneNote. So I'm just going to go to my printer here, right? I'm just in Adobe Acrobat. I chose, that's how I read my PDFs on my device. I'm going to click print. And under my list of printers, you're going to see OneNote for Windows 10. So instead of printing it to a physical printer, either in my office or my classroom or somewhere on campus, I'm going to send it to OneNote for Windows 10, the Windows 10 OneNote app. I'll click print. It's going to take about 5-10 seconds to go ahead and print that out. And then I'll minimize this. And what you notice on the bottom of my screen is OneNote is blinking. So let me minimize the PDF here. So OneNote has received this message. So basically the Adobe app kind of emailed OneNote, if you will, right? It sent a screenshot or the PDF over to OneNote. And now OneNote's asking me, well, where do you want me to put it? So I can search any of my open notebooks down here, or if you notice, OneNote recognizes that I have this worksheet 1 as the current page. So I'm just going to select that, click OK, and it's going to take that PDF and print it out right on the page. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, what can I do? I can just take my marker here. I can zoom in. I can go right to solving this equation. That's a really thick red pen. And I'm pretty sure 26 minus 8 is 18. If I didn't get that right, that would be really embarrassing in front of all my educator friends around the country. All right, so now I can write directly on top of that worksheet. I don't have to do it, as a paper and take a picture or scan it back in or anything like that. I can print the document directly to OneNote and then use my digital ink to write right on top of it. And you can write on the document. You can make notes off to the side. Anything you want to do right there on that document. OneNote continues to work with that PDF kind of placed in the background here. You can also print if you use a web browser like Edge or Chrome as your PDF reader, you can print directly from there. You can also drag and drop too. If you had the file directly on the page, you could actually drag and drop directly from your desktop onto a OneNote page, and it will insert the printout right there on the page. So super, super easy, amazing workflow. And whether in a distance classroom or face-to-face, I never have to run back to the copy center anymore because I never forget anything. If I didn't print a worksheet out in the old days, right, I would have to go back down to the copy center or send a student or ditch that lesson for the day. Now I just find the file, drag it to OneNote, send it to all my students, and we're up and running in like 10 to 15 seconds. So again, back to that flexibility and ease of workflow as a teacher. Just phenomenal. I never have to worry about anything. It's just all right here at my fingertips. So obviously we also know that assessment is key, especially if we have to go back to distance learning or some sort of hybrid environment. Being able to accurately assess our students is really, really key. So while we don't have time to dig deep into Microsoft Forms, I absolutely had to mention it on a couple of levels and how it integrates in with OneNote. So I'll take a look here. I've got this sample math assessment that I drew up, and just very, very quickly, you can build both forms and quizzes with Microsoft Forms. So you can see this green check mark. I've created these answers and I've indicated this is the correct answer so that it's going to self-grade once my students take the exam. You also see this little icon up here. You can do branching with forms now. So what I have this set up to do is if students miss number 2, it actually takes them to question 3 where they get to watch a video and then answer another question similar to that. So I'm remediating on the spot, kind of that personalized learning, if you will, to really help my students that may be struggling with circling back. I don't have to wait for the next day for them to ask questions. If they get a question wrong, I've got it built in so they can right away go back and redo that and look at that again. So love the interactivity of this. All you have to do is, here's the shared link. So just to be clear, this is the link where I'm editing it, right? And this is the share link. So all I'm going to do is just copy this, head back to OneNote. And the great thing about this is when I paste it, it's going to embed it directly on the page. So I don't have to click, I don't get taken, or my students aren't taken to an external web page. Everything is right here in the OneNote page. Now, full disclosure, if you have a branching forms quiz, the branching does not work when you embed it. Notice it prints all the questions here. Okay, so the branching's not working, and I have to look that up to see if it's coming. I couldn't find anything on it. I feel like I've heard about it, but right now it prints the entire quiz to the OneNote page. So you may want to design quizzes without branching if you're going to do it that way. Or what you can do is just delete. I just kind of clicked on the embedded form there. You can just delete that, and now I've got a clickable form. And now students can click this. It will take them to the internet, but not a big deal. They'll still have it here, right there on the OneNote page. And I should also mention too that you can do this through Microsoft Teams as well. So you can add forms to assignments in Teams, which is also a great connection as well. So you have a couple options about how you can use forms to assess your students. All right, Khan Academy. If you're a teacher, and especially a math or science teacher, and you're not using Khan Academy or not encouraging your students to use it, shame on you, jump on board. It's absolutely another just wonderful tool. So I've got this Khan Academy here that I will call up. Again, it's that same video that I had embedded before. So any YouTube link, stream, anything like that, I'm just going to copy this link, come back to OneNote. And just as the form did, when I paste this into OneNote, that video from Khan Academy from YouTube is going to embed right on the page. And now I can resize this, move it around the screen, and notice the URL changes from the actual web address to the name of the YouTube video. So for searching capabilities and easy reference, it's going to post that title right there on the top of the screen, which I love. And again, the students now can just come to this page, click play, and it will play right on the page here. Now, another tip, you do still have to have internet access, right? Even though the video is embedded, it's still accessing the internet. It's not actually physically placing the video file in OneNote. So you have to make sure that students have internet access to be able to watch it. Otherwise, it will ask them to connect before they watch that video. But love being able to embed videos. I can also add notes off to the side here if I want to. Maybe it's reading notes. I can do a bulleted list, right? If I want to here of different, maybe, you know, reading questions, guided questions, food for thought, vocabulary terms, things like that. I can put those right off to the side and move those around the page as well. So this flexibility of how we can bring different modes and methods of content and communication together within the OneNote class notebook, also just mind-blowing, super, super effective. And really, the most important thing it does is it increases the student learning, right? And that's, after all, the most important thing here. So everybody has some aspect of homework in their classroom, I'm sure. Again, as I mentioned before, rewind 5, 7, 10 years ago, students would go home and do, you know, 1 through 19 odd from their math textbook. And who knows if they were doing it correctly or incorrectly. They had no way of checking other than looking up the answers in the back of the book, which we've all done, right? Raise your hand if you have. I know we've all done it. But we didn't know what we were doing right or wrong. We just knew whether we got the right answer or not, which, as we all know, is not the whole point. The answer is not just the main point here. It's the process of learning and the steps and the critical thinking and all those kinds of things, many things that Tammy touched on in the previous half hour. So if students are home doing this problem and they have a question, they can click to highlight this problem. And if they go under the draw menu all the way to the right-hand side, the one tool we haven't touched yet are these math tools. So once I've highlighted the problem and I click math, watch what it does. It instantly calls that problem up, okay, recognizes the text from the screen, right? If it's wrong, I can click fix it here, right? And it's going to tell me to circle. Maybe this is supposed to be 8x minus 7, right? So I can highlight that 3, and it gives me some options. Minus 7, perfect. Now I've got that. Okay, I can click done. Now, here's the great thing. Students being able to check their work on their own. The teacher is doing nothing here. Just imagine you're watching a student do their homework. So from this problem, I can ask it to solve for the variable. It's going to solve that, give me an answer. It gives me both a fraction and a decimal in this case. I go, okay, well, there's the answer, but how'd you get that? I'm not really sure how you got there. So I can click show steps, and it's going to ask me to solve the steps for solving this linear equation. And it gives me a step-by-step guide about how to solve this problem. Notice, many of you Microsoft experts or OneNote experts will note this icon, the immersive reader. I can actually have OneNote read the solution to me step by step, which is amazing. The last piece of this, if I'm looking at this going, gosh, I'm just not sure I get it, I can actually use forms from within OneNote to generate a practice quiz. So if I click practice quiz here, I go, okay, I think I want to practice 5 of them. I click generate quiz, and directly on the page, it's going to build a form with 5 problems, just like the one I highlighted, with correct answers and check and all that kind of stuff for me to practice. So this student can take that, get some feedback, find out how they're doing, and then maybe move forward. Again, all on their own, self-guided, student-driven, student-centered type learning. Amazing, wonderful tool. And the ability for students to use higher problems, even into like pre-calculus and calculus, has been coming. I've seen more and more complex problems kind of be added into the mix here over time. But certainly at the early grades, elementary school, middle school, early high school classes, wonderful, wonderful application of OneNote and the OneNote class notebook. I'll touch quickly on one last thing. Desmos. If you're not using Desmos for math and science, again, I encourage you to jump on board. It's an interactive online graphing tool. You may have a graphing calculator or some other calculator in your class, but the Desmos community is much like the MIE expert community, very, very closely connected group of educators who are constantly sharing and pushing the envelope and pushing each other. But you have a graph like this, instead of just graphing one equation, I now have these sliders. So if you're familiar, this is slope, right? Just slope, point slope form of a line. And now as I change this, I can see in real time how the graph changes. So instead of graphing 8 or 10 or 15 different problems, I can take one problem, adjust the slider, and see how the problem and the graph changes in real time. Translate the graph up and down, translate the graph left and right, so on and so forth. Super interactive, same idea, copy and paste this, head back over to OneNote. I can paste this right on the page, and it's going to embed that Desmos activity right there on the page so students can interact with it, right? Just another way for students to learn and interact with the content without me as the teacher having to be there. So many great applications. As I mentioned off the top, we could go on and on about OneNote for days and days. I want to show just a couple things. There's this, the math tools are part of the Learning Tools suite. Oops. I don't know why it's not clicking over there. Part of the Learning Tools suite, there we go. So we have this kind of periodic table of elements, if you will. So you can look at all the math equations down here. I was using the OneNote app, but this is available on the web. You can do this in Word and PowerPoint. Obviously, you saw the equations and forms. Love all these capabilities. And then I've got a couple links that I'll call up, and I know Jeff wants to pop on. But if you want some more resources, definitely these websites, all the OneNote websites, and certainly follow Mike Thulson on, among others, on social media, and his YouTube channel has been fantastic for Teams, OneNote, and all of that great stuff. So that's a crash course, a lot of information I know, but please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Definitely get on social media and follow all the folks that are using OneNote, and I certainly hope that these tips are very helpful to you as you move forward.
You've been listening to the TEACHERCAST Educational Network, hosted by Jeff Bradbury. Please reach out to the show with all of your questions on Twitter @TEACHERCAST or online at www.teachercast.net. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review in the App Store.